Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We'll talk more soon.
I'm going to put on the positive side, right? Focus, take whatever it is you're making right now, and I'm telling you, we will see a completely different world, all right? Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We'll talk more soon.
Come on, somebody. Come on, so we're going to do really confident that we already know.
I can do some things to supplement what the education system is not providing.
Teammates! First and foremost, if this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show. I said it, the number one show, not stuttering, the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you, and you picked an incredible time to come in and join the Move Swiftly podcast. In fact, this and the next episode is going to be primarily for my first-time listeners, for the people that are new to my world. To my regular listeners, you already know how I get down. I get right into the point. And first and foremost, I have to thank you. I have to thank you for being a regular listener because of you and because of the persistence and because of the fact that you know my story and you come in every week and you keep up with everything I'm doing. I appreciate you guys. You are the reason. Actually, it's the listeners. You are the reason that this is the number one show on innovative teamwork. We started this show 2020 and we are now in 2023 and we're going strong. I believe by the time this episode comes out, we'll be approaching, if not already there, be approaching the 400th episode of the Move Swiftly podcast. So thank you all to my regular listeners. Now, for my first-time listeners, because this is the number one show on innovative teamwork now, it is very important because the reason that it's become the number one show in innovative teamwork is because I was humbled enough to hire a coach, hire a virtual mentor, somebody by guy by the name of Dre Baldwin, who I've been coached up by for the past couple of years. And it was him who, has really helped me focus. He actually has been on this podcast, and I speak about him a lot on this show because he's been an incredibly influential person in my life, especially in my business growth and development. All right. Very, very influential person, very, very good guy. And man, Dre, if you're listening, I truly, truly appreciate all the conversations that we've had. All right. So it was during one of our many calls that we've had over the years. And, he's made the suggestion that I simply change the title of this show from before it used to be just Move Swiftly. And he made the suggestion that I put a semicolon and add whatever it is I needed to add as a subtitle. And for me, because my book is titled Swiftly, Your Guide to Innovative Teamwork, everything I talk about, the way I start off every single episode of this show is by saying teammates, right? So I put Move Swiftly, educating business owners on innovative teamwork. And the minute I made that change to the actual title of the show, I saw it become instantly become the number one show on innovative teamwork. Meaning if you go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast and you just type in innovative teamwork, you're going to see this very show pop up as the number one show that you need to be listening to if you want to develop and if you want to know or learn all about innovative teamwork, right? So because I know I'm getting a whole lot more new listeners now, because now the SEO and the search and, a lot of those things when it comes to people looking for innovative teamwork, when it comes to business owners looking for innovative teamwork, I knew it was important. It became even more important for you to know my background and where I come from and the backstory as to why I'm so passionate, I'm so knowledgeable, and I have so much information about how to work as a team and some of the ways in which you can, even if you're doing it by yourself, even if you're lacking the resources and you don't feel like you have a strong team, when you dive into the work I do, it's all about creating innovative ways to work as a team. It's all about leveraging and working with people and doing your part. All right. I know I call myself the teamwork guy, But at the same time, like I was the one and only Move Swiftly speaker, giving you a perspective on teamwork. I have a video that comes out on YouTube every single day that starts off just like that. I am very, 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 I want to make sure I'm very clear when I say this. Being a better teammate is on you. Okay. Becoming a teamwork is on you as an individual. It's on the work you're putting in as an individual. All right. So because of that, it's important for me to share with you a little bit about my background and where I came from, and again, how this all happened. Now, keep in mind, it's a lot of stuff. All right, I grew up a football player, and I've lived through a lot of different things in my 34 years of living. As of this recording, I'm recording this, I'm at the age of 34 years old. All right, so in order for me to give you enough, obviously I can't give you everything from my backstory. That's why that's why you need to go buy a copy of my book or buy a copy of one of my 4 books, which you can get a copy of on makeyourmove.com. That's MakeYamove.com. It's a one-stop shop for all your teamwork and self-development needs. That's where you can buy copies of my books and just see everything Aswand Cruickshank right there. All right. But on this show, for the newer listeners and even for the regular listeners, because you as a regular listener, you may have come in on episode 200 and not realize, you don't really know me. You know some of the things that I say, and you may have heard stories in the past. But here is between this episode and the next episode, here are my backstory on how this all happened. All right. And easily for me, the place for me to start is when I was 8 years old. All right, I was 8 years old. Well, first of all, before I even get into that, I'm gonna do an exercise with you, and this is something I do whenever I go and I give out give out keynotes, or I deliver workshops, or I'm going out and speaking at an event, wherever it is. Whenever I'm introducing myself to a new audience, here's what I do. I do this all the time, and I'm doing this for you. All right. I want you to say, whether you say it to yourself in your head or you happen to be listening to this with a friend or an acquaintance or a family member, whoever it is, I want you to say the name Aswand Cruickshank. Just say the name to yourself. Now, that little laugh that you had, or that challenge that you had in saying my name, or the chuckle that you gave, or the reaction, the fact that it was just a challenging thing to do. Imagine growing up, and you're a young black boy growing up in the suburbs, and you hear the teacher announce the name Aswand Cruickshank. Not even announce the name, they get to the name Aswand Cruickshank, and the name is Aswand Cruickshank, but I always used to have to hear the teacher say Aswand Cruickshank, completely butchered. Imagine that name being butchered your entire life. All right. So from all my school days, every single time the teacher called my name for attendance, I'd have to give this teacher a correction. All right. It was a different mentality. All right. Because I grew up in a Caribbean household, and my mother and father were very, very strict people. And they would tell me before I go to school, look, boy, I don't want to get calls about you misbehaving. When you go to school, listen to what your teacher say. All right. However, when I first met this teacher, this person that my mother and father were told me to listen to, when I first met this teacher, I'd have to give this teacher a correction. So from jump, I was thrusted into this thought leadership world. I was thrusted into this world where I'm challenging authority. I was thrusted into this world where I got to give this person who supposedly knows everything a correction. And now there's a certain posture that I've taken, and it's carried me all the way through my adult years and all the way through my professional life. All right. So because of that, I never, ever, ever got any acceptance in school. School was a very, very rough place for me to be. And I found my acceptance on the football field. Because it did not matter at all how different my name was. The only thing that mattered was, were you willing to work hard, show up, put in the work, and do whatever it is you need to do to help the team win. All right. And that's where I found my acceptance. I found my acceptance on the football field as a young 7-year-old boy. And I played the game from 7 years old all the way to 22 when I graduated college. And we're covering as best as I can. We'll be covering, from 7 all the way to 22 on this episode. And the next episode, we'll be covering from 23 all the way to 34. All right. So I'm breaking down my life story in 2 episodes. All right. The best I can. Like I said, the best I can. You won't get too many full details, but you're going to get a general scope of how this guy that you're listening to now has the show. And again, most of these shows are the majority of these shows are solo episodes. I'd say 90% of the Move Swiftly podcast is Aswand Cruickshank teaching and giving you a solo episode on his own with no guests. All right. The majority of these shows are solo episodes. They're just putting that out there as well. All right. So I played for a program. I played for a youth program named the White Oak Warriors, the Briggs Cheney White Oak Warriors, and then we became the White Oak Warriors. All right. So it was my second year playing for them. And this is when we got our first ever white coach. The majority of the kids on this team were young Black boys who were growing up in the suburban area, but on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. And there was a mix of some inner city and some suburbs, because it was right on the outskirts. I grew up right on the outskirts, like it was walking distance from D.C. and PG County. I was right there in Montgomery County. So it was a decent mix of particularly just Black boys, but Black boys that were from certain demographics. And you could see, you can see how the team was meshing together and things like that, right? So my second year with the Briggs Cheney White Oak Warriors, we brought in, my first ever white coach, elderly white coach that took on the official, when we as young Black boys saw a white coach for the first time. The reason I'm bringing up his ethnicity is because we as young Black boys, we felt like there was an official feeling that he brought to the program, because he looked typically like the type of coaches that we see on TV. He looked like the Bill Washers of the world. He looked like the Bill Belichick. He looked like the old white dudes, hair completely gray out there, what looked like a football coach. That's what we thought football coaches were, right? We knew he wasn't somebody's uncle. Excuse me. We knew it wasn't somebody's uncle. He wasn't someone's daddy. It was someone who was there and he wanted to be there, and it was no family ties. We'll just say it like that. We knew it was no family ties. And as young kids, we're 9-year-old kids, there was an official feeling that he brought to the program. All right. So it was an incredible year, because the year before we went 2-6, we were terrible. And then he came in and all of a sudden we turned our entire record around and went 6-2, and we lost in the county championship. Now, it was the week before the county championship, right? We're the week before the county championship, in which Coach Art, who was our coach, the coach I'm referring to, the white coach that came in and, brought the official feel to the program. It was Coach Art who, we were playing it. It was the week before. It was the week before, like I mentioned, the week before that championship, in which we were playing a team named the Peppermill Pirates. The Peppermill Pirates beat us the week before, and it was going to be us versus them to see who goes on to play in the county championship game. All right. So it was during that game. In which it was a really, really close game. And the reason I remember it so vividly, I remember the actual game so vividly, was because we played them the week prior and they blew us out. And now we're playing them another week, and it's a much closer game, where it's like towards the mid to late third quarter. And we're in this thing, man. We're in this thing where we're getting ready. Actually, no, I believe it was early fourth quarter. It was early fourth quarter where we're in it. And, again, we're proving a lot of people wrong. We're proving ourselves wrong. We just got blown out by this team, and now we're staying with them. And, we're actually up, and it's like, let's go. We can actually do this thing, right? So Coach Art calls the timeout. And he's ready to burst with pride. He's just giving us his one last speech. He's like, come on, guys, come on. I told you can do it. Finish out the game. That's what he was saying to us, right? And before I knew it, we as young kids were being rushed. We're being rushed off to the sideline. And as I'm walking to the sideline, I look down and I see Coach Art. I see Coach Art struggling, like he's on his back, struggling, taking his last breaths. He's having a massive heart attack. He had a massive heart attack right there on the field, and he passed away right there. And again, this game, and I don't tell you that story so you all of a sudden feel sorry for me, or you're afraid, or you have a reaction. I'm telling you that story because when it comes to everything I laid out prior, when it comes to the acceptance that I got on the football field, when it comes to the fact that I never actually saw acceptance in school, and the football field is where I was already feeling my acceptance. When that happened and I went through that with my teammates at 9 years old, when I went through that with my teammates, the game, guys, the game, I started to learn more about the game. I started to learn more about the value of how we as a team have to come together. All right. The next week, the organization, the head of the organization, his name is James White. He had to step in, and who plans for that kind of stuff, right? Who builds an organization, a youth football organization, and plans for the coach to die on the field? So he had to come in and he had to help coach the team. And there were news cameras coming in talking about. Now I remember I was actually a captain on that team. I was a captain on that very team, and the news cameras came, Fox News came, and they were doing interviews. They were doing all sorts of things that distracted us from it only seemed right that we would go out there and win the next week for coach, because Coach Art happened to coach the team that we were playing, the Montgomery Village Chiefs. He was previously he coached for them. And it was one of the craziest things and the craziest weeks that I've ever lived through in my life. And it really did snatch the innocence from my eyes. And it put me in this place where youth football and everything that youth football provides, all the lessons and the game and everything that it gives a young person, all the positive things that it can give a young person, and a lot of the negative things that it can give a young person. I was there for all of it. So from jump, when you're talking about teamwork, when you talk about innovative teamwork, that is where it really, really started to hit home. And I started to really study this craft and realize, again, as I'm telling you the story now, I realized that I was in a master class for my life. I was in a master class for my life when I watched that happen, when I watched that thing happen. All right. Very, very difficult time, not only for myself, but I watched his daughter Coach Art's daughter, Raina, used to be the one holding the cameras, and her wife was at the games making us oranges. It was something, again, that still fucks with me to this day. All right. Because life is so very fragile. And I challenge every last one of you guys listening to me right now that you don't ever let a day go by where you taking for granted what you do. All right. After that year, I became, as you can imagine, kind of this fixture, this person, this loyal guy to the White Oak Warriors. I became, quote unquote, a White Oak Warrior legend. All right. Because I was all in, and they brought in coach, my personal favorite coach to play for was a guy named Coach Brian Davis. The next year is when they brought him in, and I was a captain on his teams for the next 2 seasons, from 75 to 85 pound. And then we moved to the Pop Warner Youth Football League, in which we merged with another county team. And then that team, specifically, this is in 2002, that team went on to win a national championship. The first ever national championship for the White Oak Warriors was won in 2002. And the head coach of that team was the late John Vassos, who, came in, and he passed away not too long, about a couple of years ago, from cancer. Right? He passed away from cancer. And I'll always have the memories of when I played for the White Oak Warriors, right? Because won the championship in 2002, and then the next year, I started at Good Counsel High School. All right, Good Counsel High School, and this is where things really, really became a challenge for me. Or really, really became a challenge for me. Now, how I got to Good Counsel High School. All right, how I got to Good Counsel. Now I'm moving. I know I quickly briefed over my youth football playing days because I can get really long-winded. And again, like I said, go buy the books, go check out makeyourmove.com. I'll have there's an entire memoir that I have. It's not ready yet, but there's an entire memoir, and all that stuff is in the making. So just stay tuned, subscribe to the show, and you'll hear more details about that stuff. For this, I'm just giving you a brief overview of my life from 8 all the way to 22. All right. So once I got done with the youth football playing days and my middle school days, I was recruited to go to Good Counsel High School. I was recruited by the legendary Bob Malloy. Bob Malloy deserves the title of legendary is because he retired with the most wins of any high school football coach in Maryland. Most wins. That's over 400 victories, over 400 wins as a high school football coach. All right. That's a lot of seasons. That's a lot of wins, but that's a lot of seasons. All right. We played 12 games, somewhere around 12 games a year. You imagine having 400 wins under your belt. That's a long time. All right. So I was blessed enough to go to Good Counsel High School and play for him. And just like at White Oak, I spent time two of my seasons, one as a sophomore. I was a captain on the team my sophomore year, and that team went undefeated. And I was also a captain on the team my senior year. All right. Again, I was a captain on the football team for 2 seasons while I was there. However, I was a complete social misfit. I was a complete social misfit at the actual school. All right. I was barely getting by. I finished my cumulative GPA was 2.2. All right. And from my freshman year all the way to my sophomore year, I had to go to summer school from my freshman year, after my freshman year, just to become eligible to play football. All right. So it was a rough outing. And you got to think, my freshman year, I played for the White Oak Warriors. I didn't play for the freshman team at Good Counsel. I still played for the White Oak Warriors my freshman year. So no one knew me as a football player. I was just a black guy that had terrible grades and didn't play any sports. All right. There was no friends. It was absolute hell. I was a social misfit my freshman year. And this is why, again, I've said this on previous episodes, but that transition from my freshman year to my sophomore year, when I went out for the JV football team and I eventually earned a starting spot as a linebacker, and I was voted captain, that year saved my life. That year saved my life because I realized, okay, I belong in this world. And it was my teammates. It wasn't the coaches. All right. It was not the coaches. It was my teammates that voted me to be a captain on this JV team that went undefeated. So again, my life changed. And this is where I found my acceptance. And I always, even on this show, I'm always going back to the lessons that I learned as a football player. All right. So I'm developing an identity as a football player. And as a linebacker, one of the things that I wanted to do during the offseason from my sophomore year to my junior year is I wanted to go out for the wrestling team. I thought it was going to be a great opportunity for me to develop my strength. I was develop my ability to make tackles, take on blocks, the whole nine. I know a lot of great linebackers who also wrestled in high school and stuff like that. So I decided to go out for the wrestling team, and I didn't like it. I honestly, I didn't like it. I thought I was losing too much weight. I really just wasn't liking the workouts, whatever the reason is. But to be honest with you, I'll give you the reason. The main reason was because once I started the wrestling team was in the winter. All right. And once the football team started to do the winter workouts with the weight room, I felt a little left out. I ain't gonna lie to you. I felt a little left out because I wanted to be on the football program, and I don't recommend this. This is a lot of the reason why I wasn't as good of a player as I could have been, is because I made this decision. So I'm holding myself accountable. I'm telling you, do the opposite. Go out for different sports, do different things. So, but for me, I was 100% football all the time. So the wrestling coach, the head wrestling coach, was also the strength coach for the football team. So I told him, look, I made up an excuse. First of all, I said, look, I have to focus on my grades. I got to leave the team. And then the next day he saw me in the weight room working out with the football team. So he kind of got the point where it's like, all right, so whatever. You just don't want to do the rest. You just want to focus on football. Fine, fuck it. And over time, he and I, our relationship was sour for a little bit, but over time he noticed how hard I worked. He noticed my work ethic and things like that. But anyway, it was during that time where the most, I mean, you may think that seeing Coach Art pass out on the field was probably one of the most traumatic things that has happened to me. It was not. It was actually the story I'm getting ready to tell you now. All right. Because it was during that time where I left the wrestling team and I decided I was going to focus on football, in which I was physically assaulted. I was physically assaulted by two of the teachers that are at good. I don't think they're there anymore, but two of the teachers, I don't even, I think giving them the title of teachers is too much. The trainers, the athletic trainers, two of the athletic trainers that were involved in the sports program, and I guess they were technically employees of Good Counsel, but I was physically assaulted by two of them. All right, physically assaulted by two of them, and it was during, like I said, it was during the winter, and it was after a weight room session. And normally after those weight room sessions, I would wait for my dad to come pick me up. I'd wait for my dad to come pick me up because they only last for about an hour or whatever. And, this is after football season. So I didn't really have any friends around me. I'm by myself. Not making a set of noise. I'm just there by myself waiting for my dad to pick me up. And the trainer, one of the there was two athletic trainers. One is a female, the other one was a male. So the female one was, she was dealing with another situation and she was clearly upset about another situation that she was dealing with some other students, right? And I'm by myself, minding my own business, and she walks by me and she tells me to go outside and wait. You're not allowed to be in here. I'm like, what are you serious? This is Silver Spring, Maryland. We're in below 30-degree weather. Like, this is in the middle of winter. I'm not going outside and waiting when I'm sitting here I'm not standing here by myself. There's no one here. I could wait in the locker room. I mean, there's no reason for me to go outside and wait in the cold. It's ridiculous that she would even come at me with that bullshit, right? So I pretty much said that. I said, look, I'm not going back inside. Like, that's ridiculous. So before I knew it, before like in the snap of her fingers, I feel her grab my jacket, grab my jacket to the point where I could still hear the sleeve ripping off, and she's pulling me up the steps. She's pulling me up the steps, trying to drag me up the steps, pulling me up the steps. And then her colleague, the male colleague I see is coming. I'm thinking to calm her down because she's putting her hands on a student. That's just unacceptable in my opinion, right? I see her male colleague coming to what I'm thinking calm her down and say, look, you need to calm the fuck down before you get fired. And what he actually did was the fucking opposite. He helps her. So he helps her drape me up the fucking steps, slam my face against the wall so fucking hard I can still feel it in my face right now, and yell in my ear, is this how you want it, Aswand? Is this how you fucking want it? And then they both drag me into the principal's office and slam me, and we're in a shouting match. She and I are going at it in a shouting match. And by far, again, to this day, the most traumatic, this is my sophomore year, the most traumatic thing I've had to live through because of how ridiculous it was. These two were not fired, all right? What happened the next day was this same strength coach, the head wrestling coach and the strength coach saw me in the weight room the next day, and he tells me some bullshit about, oh, well, if you have any more problems with them two, then you're not allowed to be in the weight room or whatever, some fucking bullshit that he came up with when he wasn't even there. He was clearly still upset about the fact that I wasn't part of the wrestling team. And that's what I mean when I say, just like when I was younger, I've always had to fight authority. I've always had to be that one that has to take the higher ground, that's been bullied, that's been bitch smacked. But God damn it, that's what makes me the motivational speaker I am. That's what makes me the move swiftly speaker I am, I should say. That's what makes this podcast number one, is because I give it to you from my heart. I give it to you as raw as I can give it to you. All right. these people, these people is they're cowards. The folks that do this kind of shit. And I know I'm talking, the pillars to my business. Again, motivation, teamwork, and dealing with rejection. The dealing with rejection is something that brings a lot of people into my world. And these people that decide to abuse you or make it so because you are by yourself and doing what it is you're doing, they're cowards. They're cowards. The two trainers that I mentioned, they're cowards. They hide behind their job. The wrestling coach, he's a coward. He's a coward because he never asked me about the situation. He jumped to conclusions. So the only reason that this situation even got resolved is because my mother actually called Coach Malloy. She called Coach Malloy and she told him straight up, look, I will take him out to school. I'll make sure all of his youth. You got to remember what I accomplished as a youth football player. I'll make sure all of his youth football coaches know exactly what happened. I'll make sure all the high school coaches that you compete with know exactly what happened. I'll make sure all of this goes down. It goes to the paper. I'll make sure it all goes down if you guys keep fucking with my son. So she called Coach Malloy and told him that. The next moment, I got a call from Coach Malloy, and Coach Malloy told me to just simply calm down. And it was him. This is why I love Coach Malloy so much. It was him who instructed myself, my mother, and my father to go to the principal of the school and make sure the situation gets resolved. And to be 100% honest, I don't think that the situation got resolved as well as I would have liked, to be 100% honest. But at the end of the day, I took a huge, huge lesson from that day. Because from that point, again, I was a sophomore. I went out and I balled my ass off my junior year in high school. And then I went on and started and became a first team WCAC linebacker my senior year and was voted captain of the team. That's how you get back at the fucking people that like to bully you. That's how you get back and you do whatever the people that try to hold you back. You get back by showing up. And that's what I want to impart to you guys. All right. I want to impart to you guys as a listener. That's how you show up. That's how you get back at the fucking people that decide they want to bully you and push you around and make it so you're the victim or make it so you're in the wrong, as opposed to looking at themselves, looking at their fucking selves and saying, you know what, hey, I was wrong for doing that. I own it. I to this day don't even remember. I to be 100% don't even remember hearing a simple "I'm sorry," whether it was the wrestling coach, whether it was the two trainers, the lady or the male. I don't even think I've heard the word "I'm sorry" yet, and I'm 34 years old. The shit happened 20 fucking years ago, and I don't even remember hearing an "I'm sorry." But I don't fucking need one, because at the end of the day, it drove me to keep grinding. It drove me in ways that still pushes me to this day. At this point, by the time you hear this, I will be ready to run a marathon. I'll probably be already a marathoner, or at least getting close to the actual race day, because that's what I'm currently training for. I just finished my half marathon. So now the things that drive me and push me are those assholes, those people just like that, because there's a ton of them. There's way more. Again, we're just scratching the surface of my story, but there's way more people like those trainers that salted me and like that wrestling coach. So many more people like that. And it's up to us. It's up to us to keep on fighting. Keep on fighting. All right. So I get through high school and I land. Listen, I my grades weren't great. Like, not my grades were. My grades fucking sucked. My grades fucking sucked. I was at a 2.2. I was so focused and gelled in to football that I never put in the time academically that I should have been. My grades should have been a whole lot better than they were. I'm the first one to admit that. So I ended with a 2.2, and athletically, again, I wasn't that high sought after of a prospect because I played one position. So it was, grades were terrible. You played one position. I was not going to get a Division I scholarship. There was no one that was going to invest money in me unless I walked on, or unless I dominated and I showed what I could do at a D2, D3, or go to a JUCO, transfer up. Some of those things, again, it was too high risk for any Division I program to give me a full scholarship. So right after high school, I ended up going to a Division II school, Division II school named Carson Newman College. Carson Newman College, again and again, I hit the coaching lottery. All right. The head coach was a guy, the late great Ken Sparks, who made it a point. Everything he was about using football as a platform to teach young men, I shouldn't say black, but young men, period, mostly Black, young football players how to develop a relationship with God. That was his main mission. It wouldn't have mattered if he went 0-12. As long as every one of his players got to know God in a better way, he would have been 1,000% happy. And anyone that's ever played for him, anyone that ever knew him, knows that to be true. All right, that is the type of man he was about, and he absolutely changed life. That 1 year, I was there for one season, and it absolutely changed my life because I developed a relationship with God, and I realized the presence of God in my life. Not only that, but my position coach was a guy named Carl Torbush. Carl Torbush was the Mr. Linebackers coach, right? He was the head coach at UNC, and he had all these videos and all this material on linebackers. All right, so get to Carson Newman, and it was my second semester there. The first winter work was my second semester, where we had a drill where we were hopping on one leg and we were racing each other. It was like a teamwork drill. We were racing each other, and we're racing each other on one foot, and I'm hopping on my right foot, and boom, just like that, my ACL goes. Tore my ACL, tore my right knee up, tore the full-blown torn ACL, and I believe they called it meniscus. My meniscus was torn too. I needed knee surgery, and I was out for the year. Just like that. This game that now defined me and identified me in so many different ways was taken away from me just like that because my ACL was torn. All right. So because of that, I couldn't participate in the spring, obviously, as a player. So I started to hold film. I was doing a lot of intern work my freshman year in college, just being a part of the team, right? And after that season, I just needed a fresh start. My knee was busted up. I didn't really like it out there. I just wanted to leave and hit the reset button on life because the knee thing the knee surgery really tore me up. And even though I was talking about transferring, I knew what I had gone through at Good Counsel. I knew that there was opportunity for it to get better. So again, I had to get a fresh start, and I moved back home to Silver Spring, Maryland. I got a job at a gym, and I was going to take classes at community college. Now, while I was working at this gym, I got a taste of the real world. Is where I met another one of my mentors. His name is Omar Powell. He too has been on this show. The title of this episode is Business Mentorship 101. I believe it is. It was one of my earlier episodes, Business Mentorship 101. And it was during that year in which he was a former Arena League football player. He and I worked out from pretty much every day. Every day. We worked out every single day. He's training to go to the NFL. I was training to walk on at a Division I program named Stony Brook University, which was the school that I actually wanted to be at out of high school. It's just, again, my grades were too bad and I wasn't playing enough positions for them to take a shot at me. And, again, now that I had this fresh start, I said, you know what, I might as well just walk on there, see what I can do, because at the time it was a smaller Division I program. Now they've gone on to become one of the elite Division I programs, but at the time, at least, they were still basically that Division I program that had D2, D3 type talent, and they were trying to build. At that point. They took a lot of transfers. From the Division I programs, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, during that year is when I was seeing a lot of training. I really could have gave up. I'll be honest with you. I could have gave up on the game during that year, but it was the fact that I was making this job where I was making $7.15, taking $7.50 at this gym named Washington Sports Club that's no longer in business. And I was meeting other football players who had lived through similar situations. And again, that innovative teamwork thing started to hit me. I was in a master's class for my own life, I didn't realize, but I was in a master's class for my life because these were former football players and now they're at a crossroads. They got to now learn how to work in the working world. This is South Bethesda. They got to go and have clients. They got to go and make sales calls. They got to go and present themselves professionally. They got to know their numbers. They got to know business. They got to know the business. It's not a coach there anymore, just telling them what to do all day. Now they got to learn business. So that was my freshman and sophomore year in college. All right. That's what I mean when I tell people all the time, look, I got a master's. I got just a blessing because I was around these great coaches at Carson Newman. And then I became like a sales guy because I was around these great trainers in the Washington Sports Club. And then I got to the school in which I wanted to be at from when I was in high school, which was Stony Brook University. And I walked on there. So when I walked on there, I wasn't eligible to play in any games. I wasn't eligible to play in any games at all because when you transfer from D2 to D1, you're not allowed to play in it. You got to sit out a year. That was just the rule that the NCAA had then. But I was able to be a part of the team. I was able to be like a scout team player. And a lot of the freshmen that were coming into Stony Brook, actually, that's when I met Taj Deshawn, who was the first ever guest on this show. All right, first ever guest on the show, Taj Deshawn. That's when I met him, and it was that freshman class that came in, and I was like kind of the player, but I was also like that big bro because I had lived through that freshman year 2 years prior, and I had experience in the working world, and there was just that voice in the locker room. Now, keep in mind, I used to get drunk and get fucked up and party with them too, but at the end of the day, I kind of knew what they were going through, and there was always that disposition, right? So at this point, I'm 21. I'm just turned 21, and I'm getting to 22, and I'll close you out with this year because I told you can get long-winded. Imagine from 22 to 35. Actually, I might just make this a 3-part series because as I'm talking, I'm realizing it's a lot of it doesn't you don't become the number one speaker on, and you don't have the number one show on innovative teamwork by just showing up. All right, you have to have a story, and I have a lot of stories. I have a lot of things I can tell you. Right, so I'm 21, and then I turned 22, and as I turned 22, I got moved from linebacker to fullback because I'm putting in work with the team. My grades are finally getting where they need to be. I'm taking college classes. I'm 4 years in. I'm getting closer to graduating college, man. Graduating college, dog. Like I'm just in a blissful place, right? What happened was the coaches at Stony Brook, they moved me to offense because they thought it was going to give me a better chance to actually get on the field and play, and it did actually because I made the travel squad my second year at Stony Brook. So I transferred over to offense, and I got an opportunity to start during the spring game. I got in some games. I was in the starting in the ones rotation and stuff like that. But I had known the game. I was so at this point, I know the game of football. And when I was out there playing and running around, and I'll close you out with this story. All right, I was out there playing, running around, doing my thing. There was such a sense of achievement for being out there to the point it was started to burn inside me. Like I just wanted to tell my story. I wanted to tell my story to everyone. Well, whoever was willing to fucking listen. I wanted to tell my story because there was so many lessons that I could teach and I could pick up that I picked up on from 8 to 22 that just going out there, running, catching balls, hitting people, all of that just got really, really old for me, man. It got really, really old, and I wanted to tell my story. So I'll leave it at that. I'll close you out with that, just that statement in itself, because from 22 to 34, there's a lot more to get into. But again, today, this episode and next episode, I'm just giving you a refresher on how this show, how the Move Swiftly podcast has become the number one show on innovative teamwork. All right. So with all that, I'll officially close you out now. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.